So, friends, you went through this part one of this particular video advice. Before moving to part two, let us discuss a case study. This case study will give you a fairly good idea of what all are involved in macro filtering of the global markets, especially how to use ITC Trade Map, especially the latest version of ITC Trade Map, the new, very user friendly version that we'll be taking up in this particular case study. You will get a fairly good idea. So, this particular case study I have titled as Macro Filtering the Global Cocoa Market. That's the title of this case study. Let me give you a brief background about the company that we are discussing in this case study, its profile and background. The company name, local name, actual name is Agro Industria Ariba del Ecuador, but in short, we can call this company name as Agro Aribba, short name. So, this Agro Aribba is a premier Ecuadorian exporter of single origin fine aroma cocoa. So, in local language, it is called Cacao Nacional. So, they are exporting cocoa beans, cocoa butter, and also liquor based on this cocoa. So that is what they export. And the location they are based in Ecuador is called Guayaquil. So this is the company that we are discussing in this case study. The chief executive officer of this company is Santiago Peralta. So he has appointed a new export manager for uh, making headway into new markets with uh, modern trade analytics use. So he was aware that these things are coming, different tools are coming, modern tools are coming. So that's why he appointed this person. His name is Matthew Silva. So basically, the purpose, what is the purpose of Santiago in appointing the new export manager? What is the management mandate? Let's talk about that. So during a quarterly strategic review meeting, Santiago called Mateo into his executive desk and said like this, that Mateo, our current buyers in North America are stable, but our margins are being squeezed by freight costs, increasing freight costs, and local inflation in Ecuador. So I want my company to expand our global footprints into high yield premium markets, international markets that I want you to identify using the modern tools. So even before we spend a single dollar on international trade exhibitions or trade fairs participation or making any overseas sales trips, I want you to do this data driven macro analysis using different tools that are available and focus on getting answers of these four specific questions. What are these four specific questions? So, Mr. Santiago wanted to uh, direct Matthew to focus on these four questions. What are these four questions? The first question is to find out where does Ecuador stand in the international trade of raw cocoa beans and processed cocoa products. So they were into butter and liquor and especially beans because main volume is of beans, cocoa beans of better quality, better aroma, fine aroma, single origin. So this is the first question he posed. The second question he posed to Matthew to find out which specific countries are currently showing the highest growth and import value, especially for Ecuadorian type of cocoa. that is the fine aroma quality. And third question that he posed to Matthew, that who are Ecuador's primary global competitors and what are their market shares? Third question. Now, the fourth question that he wanted Matthew to focus on, that which major processing or chocolate manufacturing companies should be targeted? Which are those companies? How to identify those companies? Which Agro Aribba should prioritize for direct B2B outreach? So these were the four questions that were posed by Santiago to Matthew. So Matthew first uses the new version of this ITC Trade Map portal by logging in this particular portal that is available on trademap.org and executes the Meltro filtering steps, different steps. So what are these steps? I will just show you actually how he went about. So this I will show you uh, in the next part of this video, and let's go into that. So these are the key questions that you want to answer. Where does Ecuador stand? Which markets should Ecuador target? Who are the competitors in the target market? And who are the potential partners in target market? These are the questions. So now let's find the answers together in the new trade map. So here we are in the new trade map. Let's start with the first question. Where the Ecuador stands? So I will first go to time series first. So we can go directly to time series. We can go directly from the home page also and from the menu also. And for the exporters, I will write Ecuador. For product, I simply type cocoa and the system searched the relevant code, or alternatively, in the advanced product search, we can browse the HS hierarchy assisted by our keywords like this. I can also access the product code. I will select cocoa and cocoa preparations 18, chapter 18, and let's see. Okay, so we can quickly see that Ecuador cocoa products have surged, especially in 24-25. And if we look at breakdown by the product, we can see that it is led by cocoa beans actually, 1801. So is it only the Ecuador or the whole market is going? Let us look at this answer. So we in exporter we put world and select cocoa beans 1801 and switch to view by exporter, and we press lines. So in aggregation, we can see that cocoa market expanded in 2024. And if we look at the breakdown by economy, we can see that Ecuador stands out as the biggest exporter, rising sharply, and the Cote d'Ivoire is at the top. It remains as the leader, maintaining the position, and all other key exporters, 23 and 24, they are behind Ecuador. So overall, market is growing. You can see here So now let's move to the next question. Where should Ecuador target? So in this shortcut in the table in importing economies, cocoa bean exports, Ecuador, we can see the time series data is there. Let's switch to trade indicators. And here we will slightly adjust the table to make it more clear. Share in Ecuador's export. So annual growth of partners, share of importers in world's imports. So let's change the display of the numbers from smart to raw data. So if we sort share in Ecuador's exports, Malaysia is leading, followed by United States, Indonesia, Belgium. And if we switch to the map view, so Ecuador's export of cocoa beans is well diversified among continents. You can see here. If we sort by shares of importers in world's imports, situation changes. Here, Netherlands is leading, followed by Malaysia, Germany, Belgium. Here, we can see from these two columns, Ecuador is having more prospects for United States and Indonesia. And if we sort by annual growth of partners' total imports, we can see here there are markets, but with very small market share. So the next question is, which market deserve priorities? So using the bubble graph, we can look at the market at a glance. Here we can see that the first thing what we can see here is that all these bubbles are blue, which means that the Ecuador export growth to partner is larger than the partners import growth from the world, which is very encouraging for Ecuador. All these bubble sizes shows the market size actually. So the y-axis shows the annual growth of partner economies, and the x-axis shows the share of partner countries in Ecuador's exports. So in this graph, we can see two major groups of countries. If we look at the upper right, we have countries like Malaysia, Belgium, Netherlands. These are large markets, large buyers. Size is there, growth is there, and proven Ecuador performance is also there. So this group is very, very important. That is Malaysia, Belgium, and Netherlands. And then we have the upper left group represented by Canada or Mexico. Here, Ecuador has least presence, but these are growing market, very important market. So Canada and Mexico is another group, for example. So before moving on, I can save this query here, as you can see here. Using this save query, we can quickly save this setup, including all these indicators and all these advanced features. And we can retrieve this query using load query and manage my saved queries, my workspace, in my workspace. You can save it. So if we go back and let us proceed with our analysis. Now we are going to select one target market, and have a closer look. Let's look at Malaysia. So, using this quick link, we can go to Malaysia's imports from the world by exporters, and we can choose time series to see the trends, and let's expand the time range. So from this line chart we can see the evolution of Malaysia's imports from different exporters. So all these years no single supplier dominated this market, but around 2019 Cote d'Ivoire, that is Ivory Coast, started to improve their position. But in recently, you can see that Ecuador has started growing very fast. So we can see Nigeria is also doing quite well. Growth is good. With this tree map and time lapse feature, we can see the change in the market position of these different countries. So Ecuador, as you can see, the share is increasing with time. So the final question, who can be the right partner companies in Malaysia? Here we can explore Malaysian companies. As you can see here, we have here 134 companies, and we can search by product categories also here. So basically, if we look at the product category, we can find companies who deal with chocolates and cocoa products. So those kind of list of companies will come here. So these are the list of companies, as you can see here. If we here, if we use the company profile, we can find all company details, contact numbers, website link, company information is also available. So we can outreach with these companies. So this is how you get the business leads from here. So after having done this particular step-by-step analysis in ITC Trade Map and rechecking also, counter checking of this macro and micro data by using the export manifest data, that is the customs data, he uh, did this recheck and found out these findings and answers that I want to just share with you. So the first question that was the focus of this analysis: where does Ecuador stand globally, and what are the findings and answers as brought by Matthew? The global ranking of Ecuador is number two. So number two exporter, global exporter, is Ecuador of cocoa beans, especially, which is HS code 180100 that we had seen in this analysis by value, capturing roughly almost around 14 to 15% of the global world exports. That is only surpassed by one country, that is Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, West African country. So it is number two. The export volume of Ecuador exports are approximately $1.2 billion, which is quite huge. And mainly it comes from cocoa beans, which, if you look at this analysis, we have seen that in last 5 years, growth trajectory had been very aggressive as far as Ecuador is concerned, driven by world demand that is increasing for high grade national flavor type of fine-aroma that is exported by Ecuador. That is one reason why Ecuador has emerged suddenly. So this is very, very important part, very important finding that the particular type of cocoa that is being exported by Ecuador, single origin cocoa, is in great demand. The second question that was focused by Matteo was which current and emerging markets should his company, that is Agro Aribba, target? This was the question put by Santiago to Matteo. Second question. So, by running this analysis that we discussed, where we had the product that was identified and the partner export metrics was used on ITC Trade Map using trade indicators as well as the time series data, Matteo isolated Ecuador's top five yielding buyer nations that he recommended that we should focus on from this analysis, initial analysis. Number one is Malaysia. By value, Malaysia is importing almost uh, the one third of the one third billion dollar, almost $290 million worth of cocoa beans and other products, mainly cocoa beans. So Malaysia is a massive industrial grinding nation with this type of demand. So this is number one as far as the analysis of Madhu is concerned that we had seen also. The number two market that he identified, he mentioned about is Indonesia with almost $200 million import of cocoa beans and products. And this country, Indonesia, is a rapidly growing regional processing hub. So this is another point. The third market he recommended is United States with almost $170 million imports. This market is, as per Matthew, is high margin craft and bean to bar market. The fourth market that recommended this analysis was recommended to Matthew, and he mentioned about is the Netherlands with almost $165 million import currently. Now, this market, Netherlands, is a primary gateway for as well as processing market for Europe. It's an entry point for Europe. So that's why it is very, very important. And the last, the fifth market he recommended is Mexico with almost 60 million USD import. Why it is important? Because it's a consistent regional trade partner. If we look at the American continent in that region, it is very consistent. So he further uh, found out uh, about this question is that while traditional European markets, especially the gateway market that is Netherlands, offers stability, he pointed out that from his analysis, it is very much clear that Southeast Asia, represented by countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, they represents the fastest growing volume corridor for especially the type of uh, cocoa which is being exported by Agro Aribba. So Ecuadorian cocoa that they are exporting is the fastest demand, growing demand from these South Asian. The third question that was focused by Matteo in this analysis that we discussed, that who are the Ecuador's main global competitors? So by setting ITC trade map to world imports and using the HS code for especially for cocoa beans that is 180, 100 and other products also volume wise they are not very significant, but the beans remains the main export item. Matteo was able to map out the primary rival exporting nations, led by Cote d'Ivoire that we just talked about. That actually is Ivory Coast, we call it, which is the number one global leader in the export of cocoa beans, especially, and it dominates the bulk commodity cocoa actually, and obviously it offers better price. Number two, as I just talked about, is Ecuador itself, and the competitor. Talking about the competitors, the number three position is held by Ghana, which is known for high grade bulk beans, cocoa beans. Then the fourth competitor, mean fourth means third basically, which is on fourth position, that is Cameroon and Nigeria, which are basically mid-tier bulk competitors. So companies, there are few companies from there who are exporting. So they are the main competitors. Then, if we look at these competitors as this analysis says, and if we do the competitive positioning for Agro Aribba in this world market, although it is very much clear that the West African competitors like Cote d'Ivoire or Ghana or Cameroon or Nigeria, they dominate the volume and low cost bulk supplies. But as you have seen in this analysis, Ecuador is catching up. In last 5 years, the growth rate is very high, and Ecuador has the potential to become number one in the world itself. So while these West African competitors, they focus on volume business, low cost supply, Ecuador dominates even now in premium fine aroma market, where the demand has just come in last few years. Demand has been increasing significantly. Nigeria is also catching up. We had seen in this analysis, but it is not very consistent. The growth rate of the Nigerian export is also quite high, as we had seen in this particular analysis. So, what Matthew talks about the competitive positioning is that Agro Aribba should not compete on cheap price per ton. Rather, they must position on compliance part. That is the main theme of this course also. So compliance means traceability, flavor profile, and sustainable sourcing. These are very, very important. It can give good price, it can give good volumes also. Trust level can be increased with the buyers. The sustainability of the growth of the export can be very good by these kind of compliances, compliance stack, which is the main theme of this course. Now, the fourth question that was focused by Matteo was identifying specific buyer companies in target markets, these target markets. So here Matteo used, as we had seen, the company's module inside ITC Trade Map, filtered by importing country and HS code 1800100, and cross-verifying against trade manifests customs data to build a prospective buyer's target list. So, for example, I'm giving you this list which Matteo provided, but it is not final basically. It's initial findings. So, in Malaysia, if we talk about the companies he could identify, which is actually the high volume grinders based in Malaysia, like JB Cocoa or Guangchong Cocoa. These are two companies he could pinpoint. And in European markets, specifically if we talk about Netherlands, there are global traders and processors based there in Europe with companies like General Cocoa or Berry, Talbot Sourcing, and Olam International. These are some of the companies he could find out from ITC Trade Map and from the customs data he could find out. Then in the United States, there are premium bean to bar and commodity buyers. led by companies like StoneX Commodity Solutions and Letterpress Chocolate and Amano Artisan Chocolates. These last two companies, Letterpress and Amano, are basically the craft buyers, and they are paying premium rate for the type of beans which Ecuador is exporting, single origin fine-aroma. Okay. Very good demand. So these two last two companies can be very good companies to target. So this is what I wanted to discuss in this particular case study uh, after this part one, and there are few things, more things I want to talk uh, about the ITC trade map. What are the different more features in this trade map that can be used by Matthew actually further to find out better, much better perspective of these four questions. So I'll just talk about those few things that comes with the uh, ITC trade map registration. So it's a single registration for all these facilities which are available. So that I'm going to talk. So I want to tell you a little bit about this new trade map feature which we had used in this case study. And here I will tell you that what new in this new trade map. Uh, this is available from the website, and you can explore it. For some time it is free, but it is actually a paid account, but it is very good. So the first thing we have seen actually that we saw the easier navigation with a clear module structure and intuitive search and filters. So this was very much clear. If you remember in this particular case study, we saw that. So if you've seen the earlier version, it is much better. So analysis experience is also better in this case. It's more cleaner and flexible. Tables are there. Faster access to company data is there. Bilateral trade in services data is also available, which is new. Actually, you have seen that. And it had the richer visual insights, enhanced charts and maps. And we also saw the time lapse feature, which shows the trends. In addition, you also saw the resource center, which is the one-stop hub for help materials. It has been redesigned for data availability page. So you can explore more. We did not see much of it, but you can do it. Then I also showed you that you can save and load queries. So more personalization focus is there in this. So you can also create custom groups. All these features are available under one My Workspace. So this is very interesting and it can be very, very useful. Matthew can take advantage of these features. And in very near future, things will be coming like data update notifications, trade dashboards, AI powered HS search, advanced analysis module. All these things will be coming soon. So you look out for it, and these will be more helpful in analyzing and getting leads, company data, all these things. Now, some of you would be also interested actually, and Mr. Matthew can also do that. They can integrate the data of ITC uh, trade map using API. So let's see if API is available. So when I type API, I get this answer. API is available and you can request API. And if you request API, you will get it. Now, let us also see the data availability and sources. So you can see that in 2025, the 91 countries are covered in ITC trade map, which represent 87% of the world trade. And if we look for selected countries like Ecuador and Malaysia, which we were discussing in this particular case study, we can see that up to 2025, both countries are covered. And this data is also available if we look at till which month. So it is also available. You can see it here. It is available till February 2026. So these are few things that you should know to get better results.